All right. Go ahead, Carol.
Okay, thank you. Um, so anyway, I Bonnie said she would kindly look at my jury images and give me some input, but unfortunately, we've just been kind of playing tag on email. Um, and I'm just
Send it
um,
to her through Facebook.
pardon me?
Send it to her through Facebook.
Okay, well, she keeps telling me just bug me an email, and then she says, "Oh, I'll get back to you," and then she didn't, and that's fine. I get it. We're all busy. We're all doing shows. I mean, I'm not pressing her by any
If we
means.
weren't recording, I could give you her phone number.
Okay, we'll do that later. But
Hmm.
I was, I
I'll
would,
email it to you later.
what I would love to find is like two or three people who have been jurors, maybe, who would say, yes, I'll give you some input. So, I don't know. Maybe I'm just asking to be in the wrong category. Because I'm applying in
Sculpture.
sculpture because to me that's what relief is.
Yeah.
But then I spoke to a woman down here who's doing an event in Raleigh, and they only do 2D, but I told her what I do, and she goes, "Oh yeah, clearly that could be 2D, no problem, send it in." And I'm like, "Okay, so it's a little bit of multimedia, two or
Yeah,
three
well, that's
pieces."
because they consider anything that hangs on the wall 2D.
Well, yeah, but if there was a 2D other for a lot of these shows that I'm applying to, I could do that. But I mean, when it's only watercolor and oil, and then I
Right.
can't apply to those because there's not a generic 2D, so I the only information that Bonnie has given me so far is you had put up my images last time, Larry.
Yeah.
Um, I had I had one set that is all just plaster, no color. And then I had one that has three that are just plaster with the dancer that you see behind me. And Bonnie said, "Well, change the color in the background of the dancer." And I thought that seemed, I don't know, I didn't want to do that because then if I put it in the booth shot later,
Right.
which it
It's not
isn't
the
now,
piece.
that didn't sound like the right answer. So
Right.
I'm just like, okay, I passed the first jury in St. Louis. I didn't get through the second jury. Um, but just without having feedback as to this is why we don't want it. I'm just kind of struggling with because this is a brand new medium for me. So I'm just kind of struggling with what can I do to make it better? I'm not getting, I don't, I'm just kind of not sure.
You can't go by that because St. Louis, there's only just a few really good shows, and there's less and less every year, and everybody wants to get into those shows. So
True.
they only let in a few, and I know there's people that would disagree with me, but there's a bias, and if you're not in the club, it's
Well, I've
harder
been,
to
and I
it's harder to
appreciate
get
that,
in.
Barry. I've heard you say that before too. But there's other shows that I used to get in consistently. I'm not getting in now with the new stuff.
Ah, you're being put out to pasture because you're old, like me.
But
Well,
I don't,
okay, all right. Let me say this.
please don't tell
I
me I'm old. I
The
don't,
pain. No, 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 no. Listen, this is what I have to explain this.
okay,
Um, I'm talking about myself and the pain of not getting into better shows. The way I deal with that is to make jokes, make a joke about it. Whether it's true or not doesn't matter. It might be true, it might not be true, but I say that about myself because,
okay.
just to ease the pain. So, that's kind of what I'm doing. I'm not implying that you're actually old. I'm just using what you said to set up the joke.
Thanks.
Okay? And you know what? I do that a lot, and people take it seriously. So,
That's fine. I was laughing, Barry. I wasn't just
but
taking an insult.
I will tell you something. Cindy Lyric once they did a survey on people that get into St. Louis. And if you apply for 6 years in a row, you have a 66% chance or two-third chance of getting in once. And
Well,
I take that to be real.
she also did statistics showing that if you took their mock jury and tweaked your presentation based on the feedback, you stood a better chance of getting in.
Yeah, I don't know if that's so true because it's a totally different group and
She showed me the statistics.
oh, well, that's cool.
But yeah, if they have different jurors every year, though,
Yeah.
I, I don't know how that works. But I mean, as an example, Barry, every year I applied to Ann Arbor, I got in. This year
Yes.
I didn't get in any of the Ann Arbor shows. Now,
Really?
that was my old medium. That's not
Seriously?
this.
I don't
So
mean to laugh, but
I'm just saying there's other shows that I mean I've tried lots, I've been applying
the
to lots of
Gill,
shows and I've gotten into like just BC stuff that I'm like, oh God, I don't even know if it's worth going because I doubt I'd sell anything kind of a thing.
you and me both. And you know what? I've been relegated to do those shows, and I'm not selling, you know, I'm being phased out for, I can't make any money. It's just a fact because what happened to me is, and I've analyzed this for a long time, whether what I'm saying is true or not, I have no idea. I just have an opinion and that's it. It's only for me. It's not for anybody
I got
else.
it.
Okay. I just think that if it's a lesser quality show, the people that would be serious buyers, okay, they might come. I'll give you an example. Without explaining what I'm about to tell you, I'll give an example. So the last show I did, and I didn't do very well at all, and it wasn't crowded or anything. Somebody came into my booth and said, "You're only like one of five real artists at this show." Okay, so let's take that person. Do you think that person is going to come back if she only sees a few people that she liked or that she thinks is good? And I think that's what happens. People that are because in the old days, like it was great. Everybody was really interested. Everybody was into it. They were all crowded. The shows were all crowded, and even the bad shows or the ones that we called filler shows, then that's considered a good show. Oh, if I do that kind of income, it's a good show. And I think that the serious buyers stay away. And you need, it's all along the line. The directors have to know artwork. Um, the jury has to be, they have to pick jurors that know what they're looking at and stuff. And it goes on and on. I think that um, any show could be really good. Any show. Like I just did a show that I won't talk about. I won't say what it was, but it is just like it's in a place just like Clayton, Ohio. I mean, sorry, Clayton. Glad we're talking about St. Louis. Clayton, Missouri. Same kind of upscale. It's actually a more affluent suburb than Clayton. If you dropped me in, blindly in either place, you couldn't tell which one you're in. Yet St. Louis is great from the beginning to the end, and this show is like ho hum. So why is that? Is it, I don't have any real answer because I don't know. Is it, I'm assuming they did plenty of advertising and they're as frustrated as I am. I think that show, because I've heard people say that they're not interested. The town itself isn't interested in having an art fair, but they have it anyway because they've had it for 40 or 50 years or wherever. And at one time it was an A+ show. So I'm disappointed because I think it could be as good as St. Louis or Cherry Creek or, of which there aren't enough of. There could be like 4 or 5 times as many really, really good shows so that everybody could get into all, whatever they wanted to or enough of them. And there just isn't. And you try and say something and they get offended. Like you can't make a suggestion, you know, or you can't say, oh, like I said, oh, this sucks. And she heard me because my voice carries. And she goes, you have a really bad attitude. And I'm thinking, no, the bad attitude is the fact that nobody's showing up. I have a really good attitude because I want it to be a certain way. I want it to be the way it was. I want us to make a lot of money or whatever, because it's expensive to do the shows. And that's the reality. And it's just frustrating to me. So I pipe up, which doesn't get me any brownie points, but I don't know, somebody has to do it. And I
Well,
try and shut up.
and I appreciate that, but that kind of gets me away from the question, which is more related to, do I need to do something different with my images? And if so, how do I get some feedback from some people who are judges. Like I said, I've spoken to Bonnie. Oscar, I think you've been a judge. I don't know about other people, but just to say, you know what, if it was me, I would say you're in the wrong category. Or I would say, yeah, you don't want all white. Or I would, whatever. Just, I don't even know where to start to fix it. So I'm just trying to,
Maybe you don't need to fix it. Maybe it's the people that are judging you that need to get fixed. Did you ever consider that?
I
Yeah,
would say
that
that
doesn't help
if
or
I
make
had,
a
Do
living.
do you believe in your work?
yes, but I would agree with
Okay.
that, except for the fact that I've applied to so many shows this year, and it's like, this is the first time I've ever struggled with getting into a show. Again, a completely different medium.
You and me both.
So, I understand I'm starting kind of with something that other people maybe don't do. And it's kind of like, a friend of mine said, Carol, he says, I'm really into music. And he said, and I saw an interview with, I think it was Freddie Prince or was it Freddie Queen? Was that Freddie Prince? And
Yeah.
anyway, he said, back when it was Bohemian Rhapsody, everybody was like, no, we can't do that. It's not mainstream. Nobody likes it. You're totally different than everybody else and nobody wants it. And then once they did that, everybody was like, wow, this is great. So his idea was, well, maybe Carol, other people aren't doing this. And the judges are going, yeah, I don't know about that. I don't know. Maybe I should just let it go and just keep trying, but I just would love to get some feedback on if there's something I could fix. I don't know.
Okay. See, I have the same, I struggle with the same thing because I learned that you don't compromise your work to make sales because and this is what we're talking about, really. You,
Well, it's
you
more my
know,
images, I think, than my work.
you
Maybe
think,
the image, maybe I have better pieces I should use. I don't know.
I don't know, does Larry do your images? My image, I
No, no,
think,
no, no. I mean like all white because it's
oh,
plaster. Or should I do ones that are all color? Or should I don't, maybe that doesn't matter. I don't know. Um,
well, I'm not a good one to ask that question. And I wish somebody would pipe up here, would say something, because I don't think that that has anything to do with anything. So I don't think changing it is going to,
okay.
make it better. That's just me. Okay. Anybody else?
Carol, it's not unusual to apply to a show that you want to get into and spend years getting rejection letters. I have had that experience often. This is the first time that I've been accepted to the Plaza Art Fair, and I've never gotten
Great.
into Cherry Creek. So, but yet I do get invited back to St. Louis and have won a few awards there. So, I guess what I take away from my experience is that each year I try harder to get it right. And sometimes it's just that first visual of those 4 to 5 images that just needs to be really strong, a consistent body of work, something that's going to wow them. There was one year in my frustration, I applied with the images of all my jackets. They were all red. It's just because I was so frustrated that they didn't look at the detail of what was going into making that cloth. So I just went for everything that was red. And I got in, I opened a door, but it wasn't something that I was really satisfied with because I wanted them to see the design above the handwoven fabric. I wanted them to see that it was a strong body of work. So and then rewriting that artist statement, constantly tuning that up, trying to get it right.
Well, when I did Larry's mock jury, I did St. Louis years ago with the old stuff, so that doesn't count. But Larry's mock jury, I don't know if any of you were on that, but they said, don't use I. I do this, I do that. Okay, so I
Right.
know to change that in my artist statement, but to me, just because you put I in an artist statement, the judges would say, well, we don't want you. Maybe. I don't know. I mean, again, I'm not a judge, so I'm a little, and maybe there's not an answer, but I would just, I don't know how to fix it if I don't know what's wrong. You know what I mean? Or what to try.
Yeah,
So,
well, sometimes you just need to step away and then come back to it. And by that time, you've got new work that you need, images that you want to include, and it will evolve.
Hey, I'll
So,
I'll pull Carol's presentation up.
okay,
Wait, you know what? I keep changing my thing to get better, doesn't everybody? And
sure.
I'm
sure,
getting into less,
absolutely.
and I'm getting into less shows. I was better off, years ago. It's like these improvements are not improvements. I had Larry do my images, and I thought they were A plus. I thought, well, if I got in with the other images, this is a no-brainer. And I'm
Right.
getting, it's like we would last year we made a joke about it because I got into nothing decent, and
Well,
except for
previous to this, I was getting in shows with colored resin paintings, and a lot of shows are going, we don't take resin. Resin's not archival. We're not doing that. And I was like, okay, well then I'm not going to do resin anymore. I'll change to plaster. And that because that is it's something I've
just so
always
you can get
wanted to
in,
do.
just so you can get into shows and sell something, which will keep you alive.
Ooh, where'd we go? Oh, Larry's bringing up my stuff.
Is that right?
Mm-hmm.
Oops, where did it go? Here it is.
Is there?
Okay, this was one of two. Larry doesn't have my second one. The second one is all white images, no dancer.
Mm-hmm.
Would somebody say if they were giving it like a one word, would they say subtle? Would that be a word that anybody would use?
I'm going to tell you from my experience is you should keep the subject matter of for images the same. Also, with you run into the same problem that I run is like most of my images are white and pastel. And for some reason, most of the viewers don't like that because it doesn't jump at them. And when you have the time just to 5 seconds to do it, it doesn't jump at you. I don't know if you can do the background or the images, the different color more darker so they can pop more. But with white images, you're going to have to make the lighting, I would say, a little more harsh so you can see more texture and more detail in it. So it pops a little bit more. But right now, if I was doing your images just flat out, I would tell you that the one in the two doesn't match the one in the center, two other ones, even the same style.
Say that again, Oscar. I missed it because you cut out. Say that.
The image 1 and 4 doesn't match the 2 and 3. So it's going to raise questions, what's yours? And then I would try to make the image a little more popping up, a little bit more. It has more about the lighting than anything else. You have to make the image pop, and right now they look flat.
Okay, so what I think I heard you say, Oscar, and again, I'm repeating only because you're in the car, so some of it is a little staticky. So
Okay.
what I think I heard you say were all 4 images to be like the same, like if I had the birds, they should be all maybe in nature versus the human form in nature. Is that
Yes,
what I heard
and
you say?
yeah.
Okay, and then you said images make the images.
Backgrounds.
What was that, Larry? Oh, the backgrounds. So,
But if you keep the same background, you have to make the image, the lighting to be more harsh,
yeah.
so you can see more of the texture of the pieces, so they pop more.
Okay. Well, that was one of my
Because
questions was maybe if I only used images that had color in them, not just the white plaster. But okay.
it's also, and that's no guarantee. I'm going to tell
Of
you
course.
that even if you do all these things, some work, I do it one show, and because I see the person before in person, I can tell them honestly the images doesn't pop as much as when you see them in person. And
True.
even really good images,
You-
it still doesn't even come close to what it is in person.
True.
Same
You know,
problem.
I'm sorry, I thought you were done, Oscar.
That's the same problem that another photographer that she gets into all the shows, but because people see her work all the time, they know that when you see the work in person, it looks better. But it's something that if next time you do a show, um, that's why you need to know the people that jury the shows and know who is doing some of them. So you have to invite photo artists to come to your booth and tell them to see your work, because maybe that person might jury you next time. So, and that does make a big difference, because your image might not represent, it might not show really how good is your work. And that's something that I think that's the problem you're running into it.
Okay.
You see, and I would disagree with what Oscar says. First of all, you don't need four of the same thing. You just because you get an idea of what you can do in your quality of your work. Personally, I don't like the tannish background or do them all that way. I can see why you did that, because that image pops off the background, the other ones blend into it. Personally, I think the second image is really weak. If you had I like, it's funny because I like the figure better, and I hate to use the term like. Um, I like the third one better than any of the other ones, but the second one is really weak compared to the rest. My opinion, not necessarily. Like, what do
Yeah,
I know? I don't get in anything, so obviously I don't know anything. But I would not do the second one. I would use one of the other more detailed images. And when Oscar says pop off the background, that no offense, Oscar, but that kind of bothers me, because in clay, if you actually went to art school and had a really good art education, you'll learn that subtlety is one of the values of artwork. I mean, of clay. So my work I think it's subtle, and that's my excuse for not getting in. I have no idea why I'm not getting into shows. Um, it's just
Let
I
me
don't know.
let me ask you another question, because Bonnie had mentioned at first when she saw my booth shot, she didn't like the back. She didn't like the ones across the back that were all white. Then she came back to me and she goes, "Oh, I thought about it. Now I do." But maybe I don't know if how much the booth shot weighs in terms of people, in terms of judges voting you in or not. But maybe that's just too bland across the back, I
Could
don't
be.
know.
You'd have to ask the judges.
Right, right.
Could you use Photoshop to go in on those images on the back wall and increase the contrast so you can see the form more so they don't look so flat?
Probably, Crystal. I'm not as familiar with it. I've been working in it for just a little while, but I could probably figure that out.
The other, oh,
Yeah, go ahead, go ahead, go ahead.
the other thought I had, and I'm just a newbie, so take this with a grain of salt, and it wouldn't be cheap, but have you considered doing darker colored walls?
Mm.
So they're more of a contrast to your lighter pieces?
Yeah, I mean, that's obviously the walls I have is the gray. And I would like to I was thinking of going with black mesh, but I spoke to Flourish. They're going to
Yeah.
start making it again, but they haven't yet. So I hate to just invest in more walls, like
Yeah.
fabric walls. If I'm going to get rid of them, go with mesh. So, I thought about dyeing them a little darker, but I don't know how they hold up in the rain or what if they got wet. But yes, that I have thought about that too.
Here's one thing that I wrote about this a few weeks ago when the mock craft from San Luis pop out. She had to be. This is my personal opinion, and this is one of the flaws about the jury process. We only have the show. They only give you like a 5 seconds to decide yes or no.
Mm-hmm.
And I really think when you apply to the show, depending how the jury is done, you have to, if you only have 5 seconds, you have to use something that is takes the person can make sense of the thing right away. And probably that's not the what I'm trying to say is when you apply for the jury process, it's totally different than what you do at the tent. Also, and this is my take, most of the houses are not painted black or dark colors. They used to paint it light colors.
True.
And you have to figure out how that image is going to look in that person's house. And if you have black walls, it's another thing that you have to make people think about it. So you have to kind of balance out both things. Don't go. It's a long conversation, to be honest with you. This is not an easy solution. And every single artist or person that's during the show, I have a definite opinion what is good and what is bad.
Yeah.
It's not to do with you. Also, some shows, personally, I think that they'd rather have a more traditional presentation, and it doesn't going to work for you. There's a lot of things that we apply because we think that show is great, but we have to see who's getting into the show and see what gets into the show on a regular basis, and then go from there.
Well, and I like your comment, Oscar, you made on Facebook because Bonnie shared it when you were saying it doesn't matter if you're not getting into the good shows and you're not selling, but if you get into the other shows and you are selling, what's more important? And I agree with that. I mean, I think there's obviously something to be said. We're here to make money and make a living out of it. Just because you get into a good show and doesn't sell doesn't help you anyway.
There's a running joke that I have with the 57th Street Art Fair. And last year, I did $1,200 in that show. Went to Old Town the weekend up next to it, and I make $1,500. $1,500, so it's $2,700 between both shows. Those shows supposed to be A shows or B shows, solid B show. I go to Lincoln, Nebraska, and I make $4,000 in Lincoln, Nebraska. That was more money in sales than I did it in the other two shows. And out of the fact that Lincoln, Nebraska show cost me literally only $500 to do, which is cheaper than the booth fee from all the other two shows or any of the two shows that he was local for me.
Right. And that's when I read that when you said that in Facebook, it really was like, okay, my goal is always, you always want to get in the best shows, but what difference does it make if you're not selling anything anyway?
Yeah.
But at this point, like I said, I just want to make sure that my images are, having seen them now, if they're good images. And like I said, Larry only had I've got two sets. One's all white and one has some color. Sometimes I've got the one that's the big pine cone instead of the dancer. And sometimes I do like 3 color and 1 white. But honestly,
I would do for the jury process, just do all of them with color. If you look at the process, then if it's like everybody doing the jury at the same time, like a sequence, it's not remotely. Basically, if it's not done remotely, where the person can jury at their own leads, you have to do something with color and pop out or something like that. If you want to get into that show, really, I jury with the same images because I like my work. I feel strong about my work. All my work that I use is mostly pastel, serene, doesn't have that much color. And then my drawback, the images that have a lot of color, they say that they are towards a shot. Anybody can do that shit. So I just tell you,
You're always going to get something like that, or eventually, hey,
Yeah.
I like my images and I like my work and I'm not getting in. And I wish somebody would come to me and tell me, these suck. And I want them to tell me what's wrong with the work, because obviously it's not something I'm seeing. You know, I can do
Right.
any style. I can do any firing technique. I know these things. So if there's something they're seeing in a piece, like, okay, well, your rim is crooked. Well, you know, to me, that's a good thing. That's more like the Japanese style than which to me is better than, let's say, if it was completely even, you know, like it comes out of a machine.
Right.
But if they're looking at my work and saying, "Oh, well, it's out of line," you know, you have to look. It has to look like a machine made it. I can do that. I can do any of this, you know. So I wish somebody would tell me because I have no idea why my work sucks.
Well, one of the things, Oscar, you just said about try the ones without, or go with the ones without color. When I
Yeah.
was doing huge florals in colored resin, they were very bright and very bold. And that's when I was getting in shows. So maybe it's worth giving that a try to go back to having something with color on the background like this, or just going with color and seeing what happens, I suppose.
You
Uh,
know,
It's
when
not
they
about the work. It's about what's catching the juror's eyes when you're jurying.
yeah.
The subtleties don't transfer in the jury images, and they don't catch the juror's eyes.
And that's exactly what the kind of thing I need to hear so I can go, okay, I need to do something different. And I appreciate that, Court. So that's what I'm looking for, is more input like that. So
Subtle
So
does
then,
not work when it comes to juries. You've got to be big and in their face with it.
so then
Basically, that's what I've
if
been
you
trying
think
to show
she,
you.
yes, I got that, Oscar. Thank you. Who was
so
that?
then if you think she should do colors in the individual photos, should she put colors on the back wall of her booth shot too? Instead of having it all white on the back?
I don't know. I think that
Or I'll pull it
I
up.
was thinking maybe, Crystal, that I should and put the color in the back, some of the color pieces in the back, and use the all white along the sides more, just so it popped a little bit.
well, there's a whole uh
I only use those because they were big and large and just trying to keep, take up some wall space. So, I
yeah.
mean, granted, I've got three large pieces on the right side as well. But
There is an art to arranging the art in your booth. And that goes for shows and it goes for jury photos. And you need big eye-catching pieces on the back wall. At the same time, you don't want anything on the side walls that are distracting. So in this case, I would put the white pieces all together on a side wall and put some of the colored pieces in the back.
that's what I was thinking. Yeah.
Because to me right now, especially the two egrets or whatever they are on the left side that are facing each other,
Hmm.
even though they're two of the smaller pieces in the booth, that's pulling my attention
Yeah,
Okay.
me too, actually. I didn't want
because
to
of
say that, but yeah.
the intense color.
I see. Okay.
And
Is that
it's it's pulling my attention. Well, here's what's going on. You have at least two, maybe three elements in that booth shot that are all fighting for my attention. You got the big, beautiful pieces on the back wall. You got the two intensely colored pieces off to the side. And you have on the right side, you've got the pine cone and the flowers, which have a lot of relief to them and are coming out, which are also kind of demanding attention because they're not basically flat or have
Right.
very little depth to them like the rest of them.
So why should that influence a jury's score when just because it grabs your attention at first? I know 5 seconds, but shouldn't they look at the whole thing and value the thing in its entirety and
Okay,
not
Barry,
just
here's what's going on. In photography,
yes.
there are a whole lot of things that happen in a photograph that affect the viewer without the viewer realizing it.
Okay, I get that.
And some of the things I just brought out are
Uh-huh.
a judge is not going to sit there and go, "Oh yeah, I'm distracted by those two color pieces over there." No, they're going to look at it, and they're not going to be able to concentrate on what you want them to concentrate on the image because they're being distracted.
Yeah, that's what I was asking about my work. I'm not seeing that. That could be the same thing, and I'm not seeing it.
Carol, have you noticed whether your white pieces sell better than the colors or vice versa?
I've only since I started doing this, Crystal, I've only done two or three shows so far, and that's hard to say because I haven't had a lot of sales to judge that.
Yeah.
So I don't have an answer for that, but that's something that I'm trying to figure out for exactly that reason is, as I start to build up those sales, go, aha, people want more background color. People want more white in the background and color on the front or
Right.
whatever the case may be. So yeah, I've thought of that already, but I appreciate you pointing that out so I don't forget it.
And the same thing goes um in the booth shop.
However, hang on, Cord, I'm sorry. However, if only white sells, then I go back to the problem of how do I make that look good in my shots? Sorry, Cord.
Well, I was just thinking because not only do you have to fight for the jurors' attention, but you've got to fight for the attention of the people walking by you in the shows that you get into.
Yeah,
Right.
so I usually put her on the background and I usually put the pine cone in the back corner of my booth. And that usually people go by and they sort of go, whoa, and they point and then they come in to see those. So at least that pulls them in. So
In your booth
that's
shot, can you pull that back up again, Larry?
Yeah.
the dancer is not in the booth shot because she wasn't done. And maybe she could be, and maybe she should be. Although I love the little egrets with the blue too. They're just small, so I didn't put them on the back.
Well, what if you put them in the center of the back and then flanked them with two larger pieces on either side?
I,
Yeah.
I would pull this what you have right now. Let me go back one second. In a booth shot, the back wall is the most important wall. And one of the things you can do to kind of minimize the distractions, and I think Larry's talked about this some, is instead of standing center left to right in the booth, cheat to one side.
Yes.
So you're minimizing one wall and showing more of one wall.
Yes, I agree with that. Okay.
What I would do is I would move the colored egrets, take the center piece and back out and put the two colored egrets in there and I would even consider dropping those three bottom pieces too.
Dropping them not off the back wall or just down by drop?
Off the back wall.
Okay.
Off the
Yeah.
back wall. They're distracting.
Okay, I have a question. Most booth spaces are 10 by 10. Okay, so where does she stick her extra work or her packing material? And how does she get to the back if she has to get to the back? If that's, I agree with you. Like my dilemma is, yes, the back wall is the most important wall, but I have a doorway right in the middle of that. So, how does one rectify that when you have to get to, like, I have packing material and stuff. I have to get to the back. The only way I can do is if I have a doorway through the back, which distracts. And I think that's some of my problem.
Well, I have a doorway in the back too.
Is it in your booth shot?
Let's see your booth image, your booth shot.
Is it in your booth shot though, Court?
My chair is in my booth shot. My doorway is in my booth shot and my chair is in front of it.
Okay, so me too. So that's not it then.
But what I've done is I have arranged some other things in my booth. I have a short wall in front, so I really come off to the side to shoot. So,
Well, see, I do have if I've got room in the behind, if I've got a big space like there's room on either side and room in the back for storage of stuff, I use this setup. If I've got something where there is no let's say like St. James where forget it, there's no room, then I put a 4-foot wall off the side and I put a little door on the right side that you can't see from the front because the 4-foot wall comes out and covers it. So that's a little bit different. It depends on what kind of show it is. So, and then I can store behind the other wall.
yeah, most of the,
So the
a
question
lot
is,
of the shows, I don't do many shows where you don't have room behind the booth.
So is it better than to do my booth shot showing my 4-foot wall in the front with the 7-foot wall in the back? You know, and where
I would say, honestly, I got two booth shots. I think the one that I used last year got me into better shows, and it doesn't have the French door in the back. Honestly, I think that the people, they start criticizing how you get to the storage space or use as an excuse those are artists, peers during the show. And that's another thing you have to take a look when you submitting your images, who's during the show. If they use peer artists, you might have to put the freaking door in the back. But I think that putting the door in the back sometimes, from what I heard, sometimes that takes points out of it when it's not a peer juror. Because they're going like, that looks distracting. I don't know why they have that door in the back. Once again, it's different for every single show. And if you apply with the same stuff over and over with every single show, you might start noticing, look at the pattern to what shows you got in, what kind of jurors there were, and that will tell you a little bit more. But even if you do all that, there's no guarantee. I will just do what Court's saying to you, put the color ones in the back and put the lighter stuff to the front in the booth shot and just take it from there and see what happens. But there's no rhyme reason why you get in or don't get into the show. If somebody will figure that out, I'm telling you, they will be selling that.
that's true.
That's right. There's nothing
That's true.
logical. Hey,
I just don't have enough. I just haven't had enough experience with this new medium to get there yet, because I haven't had enough applications that have been accepted to kind of see what works and what doesn't. But so I'm just trying to see if you guys had some extra input, which is very helpful, and that's exactly why I was hoping.
hey, Court,
Yeah.
did you infer that you shoot your booth shot at an angle?
Yeah.
You do.
Larry, can I screen share? I pulled it up.
Larry did mine before in my old medium on an angle, and I just didn't think about it when I did this one. I guess
You know what's funny about that? I used to do it at an angle all the time, and Sydney Lyric, when she ran St. Louis, called me up and said, "We don't want that. We want a straight on shot." So I switched. I preferred shooting it at an angle. I wish they would somebody would tell me what they prefer.
There's a difference between
Go ahead, Court.
an angle and a straight shot. And it depends how bad is the angle, because you can do a straight shot, but it could be more at an angle.
But I think if you see Court's booth shot like this, there's a reason why he's shooting at an angle. I would hope that jurors would understand that and wouldn't hold it against him. Because if he shot straight on like most everyone else, you would only see half his booth.
True.
Yeah.
And
You can set the angle.
actually, I did that. Let me,
There's so many different, opinions on should you show your actual booth or do you just show a really nice booth, so
same booth. I shot both these at the same time.
could tell.
That's distracting. Also, almost looks like it's a split shot of like, here's your booth on the left side, and then here's one image
Yeah.
on the right.
Well,
That's true.
the reason why that doesn't work is because you have a wall that's blocking half your booth.
Right.
You can't do it like that with that wall. You could do an angle either side if that wall didn't exist, because you'd see everything in the booth.
Yeah.
I think it's what Crystal was just saying, because I agree. It's like it doesn't look like a single image or a single booth.
I'll go back and see what else I have under here in my booth shots that are still. Yeah, this is what I've been using. This is what I've been using. Now my booth setup has changed some. This cabinet that's in front lower right is basically 2 foot by 4 foot. I've now turned it 90 degrees. So instead of the 4 foot being across the front, the 2 foot is across the front and the 4 foot runs down the side wall.
So you don't see it from this angle.
Right. And that wall that's 4 feet in the front has been shortened to 2 feet.
Mhm.
Oh, okay.
That's better.
I'm gonna have to consider shooting my booth at an angle. Because
What
then
do
those pieces that are in the back with the, I mean, they're, with the opening and the chair, if I shoot at an angle, I at least can get one wall of all the pieces, and it's more dramatic.
The other thing I've done is on that right-hand wall, the 2 lower pieces are not there anymore. And I'm hanging 4 pieces on the back wall instead of 3.
Good.
And the print bin is over just inside the door to be just to the right of where my chair is.
Yeah.
I think
Be
that
right in
would
this
work
area
better.
right here.
Yeah, I think that would work better myself too.
And so this is open to about here now.
Mhm.
So
Good changes.
Yeah.
What do you think about placements for print bins? Because I've had some people tell me I should put them right at the front of my booth so people can see it as they're walking by, but then
Well-
others have said, no, put it inside your tent. So
put it
that
inside.
Inside, the front.
Good done, Larry. Thanks.
If the front is if it's a slow show,
okay.
then you want to try to draw people in, but it also creates a roadblock. So you have to be careful.
Okay.
What you set up in your booth shot, you want the back wall to be the primary wall. Whichever side you cheat to, you want the most visible wall to be kind of your secondary wall, where you put the second most important stuff. And then if your stuff, you maybe kind of want to let them know it's there, but kind of really downplay it. That's the stuff you'd put on that third wall. In my case, would have been the left side.
That makes sense.
Now at a show, it's different.
Mhm.
At a show, you want to set your booth up. You have to watch which way people are walking by, and
Mhm.
you want the first wall they see, which is going to be one of the side walls.
Mhm.
That's where you want to put all your eye-catching and most important stuff.
Mhm.
The back
Well-
wall is going to be secondary.
Just to
Mhm.
let you guys know, I'm going to got to my house. I'm going to log out and I'm going to log back in when I get to my house, so people don't think I'm whatever.
Hey, we think it anyway, Oscar.
I gotta go
Hi,
too,
Karen.
but we'll see you next
Bye.
time. And Court,
Well-
I'll talk to you soon about Plaza Show.
Karen,
Yes,
You got in?
next time may not be until September or October.
that's okay. It's gonna be, this year is crazy for me. It's like every weekend I have a show and I don't know what to do about that.
Oh boy, I
have
wish
my-
I
you
had
have my
that
phone
problem,
number, don't you?
Karen.
Yeah,
Well,
we'll see.
thanks for your input, Karen. I appreciate it.
Sure, I really like the dancer, and one of the reasons I like it is the movement. It has
Me
so much
too.
energy to it. And it could be that you need more dancers to bring that energy into that presentation.
Yeah, good point.
She's the second of a series. I haven't finished the third one yet, but
Yeah, yeah,
so-
that movement gets you a lot of attention.
Yeah.
okay, thank you.
Yeah, and Katie, I love your background. I have to ask you about that next time.
It's called Lover's Knot. Crochet
Lover's
stitch
Knot.
It's huge.
or Solomon's Knot.
Okay,
Okay.
all right, good. All right,
Hey, Karen, if you have
Bye,
questions
Karen.
about Plaza, give me a call.
yep, I will.
See you, Karen.
Thanks.
Bye, Karen.
Bye-bye.
So a little side thing, since Larry brought up the Larry posted a message on the site that said we're not doing this anymore for a while, and somebody said, oh, I'm going to miss the Larry and Barry show,
Yeah, I saw
which
that.
horrified me. If I had seen that 6 months ago, I would have dropped out then, you know.
But
That's a bit harder shell than that, Barry.
it's really the Barry and Bonnie show.
Sometimes, yeah. Sometimes.
Listen, I try and shut up,
Or the
but
Barry and Oscar show.
somehow be like halfway through or at some point I got to add my 2 cents worth, and after I get off I go, oh God, why did I do that? So
I think one of the things, people, artists say are, worry about the booth shot. And I think the one thing that most artists are missing is the placement of the art in the booth. I think that's critical in a booth shot. And all these little things that, I hear artists say, oh, they're not going to notice that, or they're not going to pick that out. Well, are they going to pick it out and realize, like we were talking about the two colored pieces on your wall, Carol, the two, are they egrets or herons?
They're egrets.
Egrets, the two egrets that have the intense color. Nobody's going to say that shouldn't be there, but it's going to leave them feeling uneasy when they look at your photo.
I get it. I hear what you're saying.
And Barry, it's not that somebody's going, oh, they put the color on that wall, so I'm going to deduct a half a point. It's that it's going to leave them, all these things in a photo is going to leave them feeling uneasy.
yeah, I understand that. Yeah. It's not something that's being said. And they might not even give it much thought, but it has a little thought. It affects them, and they're not going to say
A
anything, but it
feeling.
still
It's just a
affects them.
Right.
feeling. Right.
You know
And-
what,
and-
Daryl? I
Another-
think to me a solution would be instead of doing color, do more dancers or stuff that moves, and have 4 images of 4 dancers. That would be really strong. And also, you'd have to have the backgrounds the same because you can't have 3 white ones and one
One green.
beige one, one tan one. So
Another thing is that I heard a lot is this applies more to photographers. You need to have the 4 images you're using in the jury has to be in the booth, no matter what people say. And if it's a painter, the style should be almost the same than whatever you're showing in there, at least for the back wall. But that's what I heard. That's not something that I can tell you 100% sure that's true or not.
I've never
style,
had all 4 photos showing in
yeah,
my booth shot.
I think that's
I
impossible.
usually try and have at least one.
Yeah,
But
'cause
I
they'll
don't think
sell,
I've ever
or
had
you'll
all
do your
4.
booth shot. You won't have it at whatever.
That's what I said, that it's photographers.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah.
Painters
Style,
and
yes.
everybody else is kind of almost impossible.
So let me ask one other question of you guys. So I said at the beginning, and then we got onto this do you believe sculpture is the right category?
What else would it be?
And that's my question. I mean, I don't think it's multimedia. I mean, yes, she's multimedia, and the egrets have some feathers on them. Other than that, it's all plaster. But like I said, there was a lady down here who has a 2D show, and she said, yeah, you're hanging on the wall. It doesn't come up but a couple of inches. You're 2D.
It's no, that's
It could be.
the reality is it's a sculpture or 3D mixed media. Anything else, it's 3D work.
That's
No
what I
matter,
thought.
you
That's what I
know,
Well, the question is what category should you use that makes it easier to get into? Because
Well,
you
that was
know
the
what?
other thing, right?
you can stretch it. You can have a reason for anything. You can call it painting because it's on the wall. You could call it sculpture. You could call it mixed media. There's a whole bunch of things you could call it. And I don't think I've heard of show directors accepting somebody but putting it in a different category because they
I
thought
was just going to ask about that because somebody else told me the same thing. They said, well, you're really more painting, so we're going to put you, whatever the case may be.
it depends on who the director is.
Mm.
It
I would-
depends upon the director. And I'm guessing based on the directors that I've talked to, because this actually came up in one of our director Zooms. I think it's came up a couple times. Most of the directors that I had in the Zooms, if you call and ask them which category, they're going to tell you to pick.
That's true. I've done that.
Yeah, they're gonna leave it up to you to pick. So what you need to do is you need to do some research on the shows and look at last year's who was accepted last year and look at how many sculptors there were versus how many 3D mixed media people there are.
Okay.
And this is another thing that I'm going to. When I used to work in Merrill Chase, it's almost 20 years now. There was another famous person that did a sculpture work like yours and wall art. He was really famous about that. Also, another thing that we might be, like it or not, maybe our workers outdated for some years. They think there's something that's done. That's another thing that you have to think about as much
They think it's what, Oscar?
outdated.
Outdated, really?
Yeah.
Okay.
See, think about how
The
absurd
wrong
that is. So you're telling me Picasso's outdated because it was or wait, Michelangelo because it was like 500 years ago? I mean, outdated, that's a
What?
ridiculous statement. Not you, Oscar, your statement wasn't ridiculous, but the person that said that or what thinks that is ridiculous. They shouldn't be on a jury.
Okay, then I'm ridiculous because I think that styles change and that as an artist, I mean, I'm about to make a massive change. And the only thing that's going to be consistent between my new work and what I'm doing now, what I've been doing, is it's black and white photography. Everything else is going to be totally different. Subject
doing
matter,
color?
everything's totally different.
You're still
And
going to do black and white?
Huh?
You're still going to do black and white?
Still be in black and white. But it's, you know, you have to, as I do different things and try different things, I have to push myself as an artist to do something different. I have to find that fine line between taking the skills that I have and the knowledge that I have, but yet pushing myself in a way to do different things. And so it's like, okay, what do I throw out? What do I keep? I'm seriously looking at getting away from all the work I've shown to date has been documentary and journalistic. I go out and find it. I don't set anything up. I'm looking now at doing something that's totally set up.
Well, Court,
Studio.
considering that your work is really good and really thoughtful and well done, anything new that you do, I'm sure it'll be really good.
But and styles change, tastes change. And if we don't, as an artist, if we're selling to the general public to put things on display in their homes, and we're not keeping up with styles and trends, it's going to affect our sales. And
Well, it's interesting you should say that because one of the reasons I got away from, I mean, I've always wanted to do plaster. I tried it years ago, couldn't do it, finally found a teacher and started doing it. But recently read an article on textured walls are coming back. Not ceilings, not popcorn, just textured walls. And I thought, well, good. That might help me. Maybe I'm ahead of my time. I don't know.
And Pantene, whatever, they do a color of the year.
Yep.
And it's like all these earth tones is supposed to be these
The new
thing.
thing.
These are my colors, and
Gray is out.
and I'm
Yeah,
selling
earth is back.
less. I thought, oh, I'm in. Nah, apparently not.
Today the last house that I did today, she just remodeled her house, and one thing that caught my attention it was that all her artwork was white.
Oh, like mine. Just
Yeah.
white.
Just white.
Interesting. What color were her walls, Oscar?
Light gray.
So it's like my booth.
Yep.
But she likes that. That's her taste.
No,
Right.
but you know what? It's not I did two things today. That was in Naperville today, which is a traditional environment. Then I went to the first job. It was in downtown Chicago. It was a photograph of the guy from Playboy with the bunnies in the background and the Drake Hotel before they moved the the Playboy's house to where it is, what it is now, where it's located. And it's a really gorgeous image. And you see the home they has, it looks like a really antique looking different vibe. So I cannot tell you uh, what people are buying, but I can tell you right now, it's as much I want to say not to, and I tell that more to the painters, and it applies to us, anybody doing 2D. People are going to Home Goods and buying stuff from there and put it in the wall. I couldn't hang one piece yesterday because it was 30 inches away from the wall, and I was going to be 30 feet high, and I couldn't even reach to put the nails myself, and I was not about to risk it. But the piece was from Home Goods, and she told me flat out, "There's more. You're going to be there for the next 10 years." So
Okay.
What age range, Oscar, was the lady?
she was in her 50s.
Well, that's interesting because I've been finding more like our kids' ages are all like into, home goods and not real art. They want prints. So I'm
They want
thinking
something in
younger.
the wall. That's
Yeah.
what they want. They know they need to put something in the wall, but they don't have the budget or they just
Yeah.
think that's not as important to have something unique that nobody else has in their house. And and that happens. I I honestly doing the installations are blessed because it keeps the money coming in. But when I start looking at how it affects what I do as an artist, it's kind of sometimes depressing because I see people putting stuff that sometimes I spend 5 hours hanging, which is $400, and then they tip me, and the artwork was maybe $300 total.
Yeah.
So
It's a frustrating problem.
and it's happening more and more often lately, and I don't know what it is, but and
I'm seeing something a little different. The last show I did, there were more younger people that were professionals that came into my booth and they liked the work, but they were really hesitant to buy. I couldn't close any of the bigger sales, not one. But my feeling is that they want something, they don't understand the prices. They're really, like electronics, they understand what the price is, but artwork, they don't understand it. And like things repeat themselves. It reminds me of the old days, when people were just coming to art fairs for the first time and they saw the work and they were very hesitant, but then we had to talk them into it. As opposed to the last, 5 years, whatever, it's all been older people. I'm going, where are the young people? And there weren't any, or there were less. And now I'm noticing that group that, they're in the 30s and 40s, and they now have decent jobs, and now they're out there looking. So maybe it's an opportunity. Maybe they just need to see it a couple times because
I
I
just
know
think
they
that
want it.
last show that we did together,
Yes.
that crowd was. I realized it after I finished the show, and I started evaluating the show.
You think they were old?
That was a crowd that you had to sell your work. It
Yes.
was not a crowd that they wanted to be pampered, and it was like you had to the mentality you had to talk to them was like you was in a gallery selling something, given reason why they had to buy it. There was not it was not the typical art show crowd. It was totally different crowd. It was more like a tell me why I need to buy this from you. It's not like a oh I like this. It's I can connect to it. It's like they was trying to find value in the artwork, and it was a tough crowd. I'm not
What
going to
show
tell
was
You know
you
what?
that?
the opposite.
You know what? I like that. I worked my butt off for that at that show, doing exactly what you're saying, and still they were very hesitant about buying the work. Now maybe next year or next time, if there is a next year or a next time, maybe they'll think about it all year. I already had that. I've already had that a couple times where people said, I'm really glad you're back because I thought about this piece all year long, and now I'm going to buy something. I'm going to buy your best piece. Okay. When, when, when it's the kid and he looked like a kid, and he's like he's he teaches dental school at the University of Michigan Dental School, so he has a good job and he can buy stuff. He looked really young, but he was really interested, and I really talked, my
No,
butt off.
Barry, it's not that they look really young. It's just that you're really old.
Okay, well, whatever,
Here we
whatever.
go at the age again.
That's great. Well, I got young eyes, so. Whatever, like we are what we are. I'd love to go back, like a few years, but it's not happening, you know.
You live long enough, you can.
Yeah, but I'm still gonna look old.
Oh. I just I really don't tell you honestly what is the best way to do things. I just you have to you just the only thing you can do is try your best, and that's the best you can do, and whatever happens happens. It's nothing else you can. If you start, only if you're doing something dramatically stupid, you
Hey, I want to ask Court something.
yeah.
Yeah.
Court, since you do this, since you drive around and you see things and you take pictures like this sign behind you,
Yeah.
do you still see signs that say blacks and Jews not allowed? Like it, like
No,
it,
I haven't. I have spent time uh in a few cases looking for them.
yeah,
Um Actually, the town I live north of, that's my mailing address, Belle Plaine, Kansas.
yeah.
I had a photographer tell me that who's way younger than I am, that on one of the city buildings in town there was a comment about blacks or whites only or something like that, a white community or something like that. And I've spent some time down in Mississippi where there was supposedly a building that still had restrooms or something marked blacks and whites. And um, also somebody told me down in the old Oklahoma City uh, farmers market, there's still a couple of blacks only or whites only signs,
Really?
but they're down in an area you can't really get to, and they're hidden unless you know exactly where they are. So,
Yeah. Because it was prevalent, even up through the 70s, which
yeah.
to me it wasn't that long ago. And I'm just wondering if any of that exists now. I mean, because you're looking for signs, interesting things to shoot as a comment on Americana or whatever. And I'm just wondering if that still exists.
No, the current version of that is
Immigrants.
same town where I live, that my mailing address is. On all these signs for the school, because there's signs around town that point to where the high school is.
Uh-huh.
Um, the Methodist Church has put up signs, and I kind of have an issue with it because I want to know why a publicly funded institution, either the city or the school district, is putting up signs for a church. But for those of you that don't know, don't go to church, whatever, the Methodist Church recently, in the last, I think it was 3 or 4 years ago, maybe more recent than that, split.
Mhm.
over the
Past
issue
year to
of
two.
gays and lesbians.
Mhm.
You mean the Methodist church itself? Like there are some Methodists that are okay and some that don't?
Yeah.
The Methodist church organization literally split in two.
So
Oh.
they've got the Lighthouse Methodists, and they accept everybody, gay, lesbian, color, whatever. And then there's the very, I would say traditional, maybe. I don't know the exact word that they're like, no, we don't accept that at our church. So we won't have a pastor who is gay, or we don't want people to come here or
It
what.
is the United Methodist Church, which is what it was before it split,
Mm-hmm.
is the group that is accepting. A group split off, and it's called World Methodist or something like that. And those are the signs that they put up in town. So anybody that's up, basically, you drive into town, and one of the first things you see is this sign for this church, and basically says, if you're part of the LGBTQ community, you're not welcome.
It even says that on the sign.
No, it doesn't say that all openly on the sign, but people know.
But if you know the
Okay.
difference.
So people
Yeah.
know. All right.
And this community is, about a mile by a mile. And there's at least 6 of these signs. You see one of these signs on the 4 main entrances to town, and as you're going, you see it again as you go across town. So yeah, the stuff still exists, Barry. It's just not quite as
No, I know it exists. Let me tell you. I'm part of a minority where it really exists all the time and every day. So, you know.
So
Well, guys, if I could, I just want to interrupt. Thank you all very much for your input today. I got to run, but thanks a million for everybody's insights. It's very helpful. That's why
Carol,
being
were
with
you
you
able to
guys.
get your photography figured out to some degree?
To some degree. Still working on it, Court. Still working on it. It's a work in progress.
All right. Well, let me know if
Thanks,
you need
guys.
help.
Hey, I will let you know. All right. See
Bye.
y'all. Take care.
See ya.
Larry, when you stop recording, will you have to stay on for a half a second afterwards? Like if you cut it out now, I want to make a comment,
What?
but I don't want it to be public.